people ask a lot like, oh, how are you doing this all? And, the fashion company through COVID and I'm a really social person and I enjoy like being in the community. There's a lot of balls in the air. And so like, how do you do it all? And 100%, I don't.
Welcome to the MiiR X Podcast,
a show that dives deep into the untold stories and untapped brilliance of business leaders, creators, and change makers who are shaping the world around us. I'm Brian Pape.
And I'm Rebecca Pape, and we're the co-founders of MiiR. Today on the show, we have a trailblazer who's changing the way we think about fashion. We're talking about the one and only Ambika Singh, the founder and self-proclaimed chief boss lady of Armoire, a subscription-based clothing rental company that's on a mission to help people conquer the world and look damn good doing it.
Through Armoire, Ambika is revolutionizing the fashion industry, offering a simpler and more responsible approach to shopping. Her work has generated tons of excitement, earning features in Vogue, the New York Times, and Today, to name a few. In a world where trends are fleeting, Ambika Singh is proving that sustainable style isn't just a passing fad, it's a revolutionary shift. Let's get to our conversation.
Okay, well, let's start with an easy one, Bika, because not everyone who's listening is familiar with your company and what you do. So give us the elevator pitch of Armoire, which is a play on word to armor. Tell us about that as well.
Yes. So I am the founder and CEO of Armoire, and Armoire is the dream closet for the professional woman. And what that means is that we curate clothing from all around the world, particularly focused on clothing that's made in America and made by women-owned brands. And we suit her up. We armor her up for the day. And what that means to us is that she rents clothes from us so that she's ready for all of her different events. And she starts from a base of things that we've picked particularly for her. And the way that we do that is a mix of professional stylists and an algorithm that learns from the feedback that she gives us. So to make that a little bit more real, we might have a customer, like one that I know very well, who comes to us.
Who could you be talking about?
She might be a very busy woman, a professional woman. She might be a mom. Her calendar is packed with lots of things to do. And we get to know her through a style profile that she fills out for us. She tells us what her style is like and what kinds of events she's going to. And then we start to recommend things to her. And it's a two-way conversation. She tells us the things that she likes and she doesn't like. And we store that information and then we learn from it. And we start to populate your closet with the things that it looks like you have the biggest likelihood of liking. And so when you come to the website, you'll see a completely different experience than I will see. And so the reason that this to us is the dream closet for the busy woman is because we give you both joy in your closet as well as efficiency in your closet. And one of the things that is really important to us is that clothing, especially in the modern era, has become sort of disposable when it's really not. And what that means is that most clothing in America will end up in a landfill after just 5 to 7 wears, which is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
So what can we do about that? Our hope is that we can help people share. So my kind of initial inspiration for this business was that when I was young, good immigrant family, we had one other kind of like relative who lived on all the way on the opposite side of the country, my mom's sister. And I have a cousin who's similar age to me. And we would see each other once a year and we would swap our entire wardrobe. It was amazing. But for a teenage girl, it was like, I had
what could be better
100% scale on my closet.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of like just sort of like something that was obvious to me that like sharing clothes was so fun. I thought if I apply the internet to this, it will be sharing clothes with everyone and it'll just be simple, of course, which we should talk more about the naiveness of the entrepreneur for me to this, everything is simple, easy to figure out, won't be that hard, that kind of stuff. But that's really, the genesis and still the thing that is so exciting to me is that we're delivering the same joy and excitement that I remember from being young and like opening that suitcase and being like, wow, look at all these things. And we're doing that for women across the country.
Is your cousin a customer?
She is.
That's very fun.
Yeah.
So I've been an Armoire customer for, I want to say about 5 years now. And what you all have done for me that I didn't necessarily expect is you've actually helped me purge my closet.
Yay.
So I actually have more room in my closet. And then of course I love that monthly circulation where new things are coming in and the items that I've enjoyed for the past month or two are going back out. I think clothing rental makes so much sense and most of us are familiar with it now, but tell us what that landscape looked like when you started, because there was less competition, right? I mean, was Rent the Runway the front runner and sort of the pioneer in that space?
Yeah, absolutely. And so actually, if you go back even before that, the clothing rental market in America was really the tux rental business. And so it started with men and event wear, which like made so much sense. You know, you're going to wear the tux like at the prom and maybe at your wedding and sort of end of story. So guys got it right first and they shared those tuxes.
I got it wrong because I bought a tux for our wedding because I was like, I want to memorialize this moment and have a tux that's mine. So I didn't rent it. I purchased it. And I think I wore it one other time outside of our wedding.
But you're totally right. I had forgotten about
it.
that. Like I remember prom, you know, I'm 17 and I remember my date went to go rent his attire.
Right. So those are the things that like end up, not having a very long life. And so Rent the Runway looked at that and thought like, okay, women are throwing away their event wear. How do we do a better job of this? We came with a kind of broader perspective from the just sort of like thinking about event wear to thinking about everything. And so Armoire started where we still are with trying to outfit the professional woman for all of her all of her events. And we focus primarily on the workplace because that's where the professional woman is going the most. But we bleed into sort of casual and event wear and resort wear and stuff like that.
Yeah, you really cover all of it. I mean, and it's been fun to watch the evolution because I think when I first joined, I want to say you didn't have maternity. And then, you know, at some point in there, I found myself pregnant and you offered maternity. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're meeting me exactly where I'm at, you know, and then outerwear, you know, like wintertime hits and you're like, I don't want to wear the same down jacket for the entire season. And then, you know, you had a plethora of outerwear available. So it's been really fun to just be a part of it and be along for the ride.
Thank you. Well, I mean, and that has been a great, I think, gift of this business is that it's something that people feel very emotional about. And that was something for me that I knew that I wanted. My career trajectory was, I came from, I spent a couple years at Microsoft. I worked at a travel startup. I actually sold kind of like system, like tech stuff to other businesses, like as a consultant. And the thing I really missed was like having this sort of feeling that I was impacting someone's life sort of like intimately, that it just felt like this was the place to focus because women were incredibly passionate about the fact that they were not happy with their closets. They were very often the kind of the place in the home where the most money had been spent. Like the physical place in the home, if you were to kind of like zero in on a couple square feet, the closet had, you know, a huge percentage of the value of the home. And yet women would stand in front of their closet and we would ask these kind of like design thinking type questions. How do you feel in front of your closet? The most repeated word was guilty. I feel guilty that I bought all this stuff. I don't really want it anymore. I wish I could have something new. This thing doesn't fit me and it makes me feel bad because like my size has changed, or like, why did I, you know, spend this, like buy this fast fashion thing? Like I feel bad about that. It just was like emanating a lot of negative feelings. And the dichotomy of the fact that on the flip side, you have spent the most money in this like little box here, like this seemed like an extraordinary problem to me and a solvable problem.
Okay, standing in front of the closet, I think there's guilt, or can be guilt, associated with what you spent there's also guilt. And for me, it's around, I don't have a good outlet for getting rid of this stuff that still has value to somebody out there.
Totally. And I feel the same way. And like, it's crazy to admit, but I basically have not bought anything, except for a few kind of like basics here and there in the last 7 years. And my closet still looks pretty full because all that stuff I had before, I feel bad about getting rid of it.
Can we talk about pricing for a second and how
Yes.
you even approached pricing from the outset?
And I would love to ask a question back to you guys because this is like such a struggle. So originally I did, I actually took this class in business school called pricing, and I made all the mistakes that they told us not to make. And basically what she said you should do is like get a sense from your customers about their willingness to pay, which we tried to do. But now, having run a business, I would like to go back to my professor and say that is actually a very hard thing to do. Because
it's like asking them for something that they don't necessarily know they would pay for or not pay for, right?
Exactly.
It's kind of like if Apple was like, "Hey, customer, what do you want in a phone?" They'd be like, "To make a phone call." And they don't know that you could have a FaceTime video screen, like I don't know.
Brian has I
have thoughts there.
He has feelings about
theories, school and
Yeah.
theories. Like it's great until you're in real life actually trying to do it.
Right. And this was that. So what they didn't want us to do was do cost-based pricing, like add up all the costs and just like slap a margin on it, which is partly what I did. And the second thing that they really don't want you to do is like just look at the competitive landscape and choose a price. And that's also what I did.
Yeah,
So I picked a price that was like slightly below the competition, which is another thing they tell you not to do. And this one I do, like, I wish that I had listened to this. Her point was that like most entrepreneurs are the most critical of themselves and their own business. So you're always going to underprice your product because you're like, oh, of course I'm like slightly worse than this like big scary competitor who's been in the market for a long time. I did exactly that. So if anyone is listening, don't do that. Believe in yourself. Ask somebody else how much it's worth. Don't ask yourself. And then I did cost-based pricing where I just like randomly smacked a margin on there that was way too low. I think another critical downfall of first-time entrepreneurs, I'm guessing, because like all of my spreadsheets were wildly optimistic. So what I thought was like a livable margin was half of what it should have been. So that's how I did it. I would like to redo my pricing now. So give me your wisdom. What did you guys do?
The exact same.
Oh no!
No, it was, you look at what your competitors are doing, because it's at least, it's like, this is
a
real.
benchmark.
It's a benchmark. Like, oh, this company is selling a bottle for this price. I know how much it costs to produce this product. So like, okay, can I like make this work based on this margin? Probably.
Yeah.
But we were always intentional about making sure we understood the difference between somebody who just sourced a random product and marked it up, and then someone who actually designed it and marked it up. Meaning we started delineating between like, okay, if we're actually taking the time to design and build a more beautiful functional product, there's a premium associated with that because you'll have a better experience. So therefore it should be priced higher, not just because of that, but because you have to build your own tooling. You have to, like, you're starting from a more expensive cost basis than if you just like went to a supplier and said like, I want this random bottle that has no intellectual property. I need to buy 10,000 of them.
Right.
But to your point, there was moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, we're too expensive. Like, how could we ever price the same as Yeti or Hydro Flask? And then you talk to a customer and they're like, oh my gosh, I love my product so much more than yours because it's considered design. It feels better. And you're like, oh, maybe we should be priced higher.
Yep.
And then, so that, I don't know, that we definitely like looked at competitive landscape for pricing, and we still do. Like, I don't know. I do think there's a difference between an offering a competitive set product and then gouging customers. And I feel like sometimes some of our competitors gouge because we know what it costs to make. And I don't know. There's a balance or a mental game that we constantly play of like, we could probably charge more. Should we? Maybe not. I don't know.
We also don't operate by a subscription model like you do.
Yeah, the subscription is definitely helpful, though also tricky when thinking about the payback on the item, and the marketing costs in particular. Brian, your point about like marketing or sort of like internalizing the extra costs that it costs to deliver a premium product is really interesting. I am not sure that I'm still doing that. I think that the way we think about it is like, okay, what is sort of like the competitive rate of how we, like in our business, for example, like sourcing the best thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think I sort of think about it as like, well, we're doing it more expensively because we're small, instead of like, maybe what I should be doing is thinking about it, well, we're doing it more expensively because we're actually scouring the earth for these things and like making sure that we try them on and like all these layers of like extra costs that we hope delivers value to our customer.
Like the more vetting you do for that particular brand, perhaps the more valuable it is to the customer, the more they would pay. You could also put your highest tier brands at the top and make them inaccessible, or there's an unlock, right? You can't access these brands until
you pay more, you have a higher subscription. It's interesting because I remember growing up and my dad was like, he's so funny. He's so frugal in so many embarrassing ways. Duct tape.
Does he listen to this podcast?
I don't know if he listens. It'll be funny. Hey Dad, what's up? He would always say that like things always came from the same place. So when we go shopping for like, I had like the not cool basketball shoes growing up. I always wanted Jordans, and he was like, it's a shoe. It doesn't matter. You can still shoot the same basket. Like your shoe doesn't influence your shot. Like you need to practice more, not like worry about the shoes.
Is that why you have a shoe fetish today?
Yeah, that's why. I mean, I literally have Jordans on right now because I didn't have them growing up.
Well, actually, I won't say that you have more shoes than I do because I think you actually counted.
These are fighting words,
but we're close.
Actually, it was a nice in Armoire, and Beck was talking about renting clothing. And I was like, my thing is I don't have clothing rental, so I buy shoes.
It's true. He's like,
anyway,
you rent your clothes. My thing is shoes.
I buy shoes.
And then I'm like, well, what happens when Bika offers clothing rental to men?
I'll stop buying shoes and I'll give my money to Bika.
Yeah. I'm here for it. That's like a win-win for me.
Perfect.
Exactly.
I'm here for it. He would talk about how his thesis was like, oh, it comes from the same place. You're just paying for the brand.
Right.
And to an extent, it's somewhat true. And when I was building product for MiiR, people would say, oh, this product all comes from the same place. And to be honest, we produce in a factory that makes literally all the top brands. But the difference is, even though it's made in the same place, we are designing our product and having them tool up specifically for us. And so there's actual like lines of production that are dedicated just to MiiR. And then on top of that, so not only is like the engineering better because we've designed it in partnership with our basically designer, engineer, and then it goes to production, and then how you go around your tolerances and how do you inspect and how do you do QA, QC, like there's all these things that you can do that another competitor can choose not to do. So even though it comes from the same place, we have a different process for quality that allows us to sell a better product, and therefore it's more expensive. So on one hand, I'm like, I totally get it, Dad. And on the other, even if something comes from the same place, it's not made the same way.
Yeah. And I think another thing that like at least wasn't on the radar for my parents, so this maybe is generational, is that I look at especially like a company like you guys, and I think like I want to spend my money here because I know that there's like a bunch of other benefits in terms of like where my dollars are going that are values aligned to me. So that's, I don't know if that was like a COVID era kind of like realization, or it's just like this consumer is more aware, but I think it does matter that you guys are paying a living wage, you're built in Washington, like all these things that sort of like matter to me that I'm willing to pay more for. But it's a tricky story to tell because like on the Armoire side, I feel similarly, right? Like we run a warehouse that is primarily employs women, and everything is like homegrown, and like we try really hard to like build the supply chain that we're proud of, all the stuff that like has the values that are important. But it's a hard story to tell because when you're competing for Google traffic, you only get the little snippet.
Totally. You get that's so true. It's interesting because I do feel like there's a pendulum that where social enterprise, I mean, you remember in the 2010 to 2015 range, buy one, give one, like the BOGO and the one for one, like that was everywhere. And a lot of those businesses don't exist anymore, primarily because I think they didn't focus on quality product. They focused on the messaging and the kind of like kitschy marketing aspect of it. I'm sensing a bit of a pendulum where people just want a great product and they don't want the story attached to it. Some people do. So I'm not saying it's everybody, but it seems as though now people are like, I just want the thing without all the other stuff. Like I don't need the toppings. I don't need the, whatever du jour. And it's interesting because we were working on some messaging about how we talk about the brand, and we kind of landed on like, we don't want to tell people what to do. We're just going to provide a better option. And people can self-discover after they buy the product that, oh, wow, it is like a certified B Corp. Oh, they are transparent with their supply chain, or, ooh, they do X, Y, Z or whatever else, and let it be more self-discovery than a marketing aspect. And I don't know if that's right, because I think there's still companies out there who are like, our marketing thing is the differentiator. Yeah. And I think when you sell a product, it can be hard because the product should be the differentiator. How you make it can be a differentiator, but I just don't know if it matters as much, especially when you're like, you've got this much time and this much space to convince someone to buy your product.
I think that's right. And like, that is a place where I think the subscription does sort of really come into play for us, which is like, you can acquire people on all kinds of marketing messages, but like, I am trying to sell this thing to be what it is for Beck, which is like, I want to be in the closet for the rest of your life. Like, this needs to be a deep relationship where Armoire continues to provide value every time you get a case. And that, to your point, Brian, is all about the experience of the product.
Well, and we haven't even talked about the in-person aspect, which is fewer and further between. But I'm thinking of the time I've actually visited your showroom to pick up my items, and I had the opportunity to interact with your people. I had the opportunity to swap out things that actually didn't quite work that I had selected as part of that monthly package. And, I'm not your first time customer walking in. I'm further down the funnel. I would argue I'm at the very bottom. I'm your loyalist. Yeah. But to hone in on those customers and those relationships and meet them in person, that's where you get that lifetime customer.
If we get it right, it really is a beautiful thing. And it's from an inside out perspective in terms of like how we run the company. I love that, because I came from consumer where it was very transactional. Like the whole kind of like the base metric in the business was like, did I make more money on the purchase than what I paid to get you there? Because you're never coming back. So totally. Like, I just need to make sure. And it felt so, I don't know, when I went home at night, it didn't feel like I was changing the world for the better. It just felt like I had managed to pull you across the finish line, took your dollar, then goodbye. And the long-term nature of the subscription, I think, really moves the customer and the business real close together, because you continue every month to choose to pay us, and we have to earn those dollars. And so it's almost like, I think, backwards from the way that maybe people who have had bad experiences with subscriptions think about it, where they're like, oh God, I'm just like locked into this thing, and then this company is just going to keep charging me, and it's like going to be terrible. Yeah. Actually, the way that we think about it is like, we have this opportunity every month to like win back your business. And can we do that? So you're totally right. On those customers, it is a beautiful thing. It is hard to get people over the hump. So the first 3 months, we see kind of like the most extreme churn, which like is the way it should be. But like, the things that keep me awake at night every night is like, God, how did we fail that many people? It's wild. So it's not all daisies.
Yeah.
No.
Can you think back to maybe a first tangible moment where you thought to yourself, wow, I actually am changing some lives and impacting the world in some way?
This is like my safe place. Whenever things are going like awry, talking to a customer reminds me. And I think I've been lucky to have that experience from day one. So I was sharing with you guys, actually, our CMO was our very first customer, and we were friends. And like a good friend, the way this began, I was thinking about it, and I had actually gotten into MIT's accelerator, which was a life-changing moment for the company. It took it from idea to now I had a job. I had to go there every day, report every Tuesday and all this stuff. And it really, I give them all the credit for getting us off the ground. But the way I made my first transaction was that Kristen asked me if she could borrow a dress for a wedding. And like a crazy entrepreneur, I was like, can you rent it? And she was like, what? And I was like, can you rent it from me? And she was like, sure. What does that mean? And I was like, well, I'm going to show you a set of dresses. You're going to pick one and I'm going to mail it to you and you're going to pay me. And she was like, I have to pay you? And I was like, yes, please. And she did. I still $150 Venmo charge. And that was our very first customer. And she came back from the wedding with 3 more customers for me, and I charged them too. That was one thing, good advice from a seasoned entrepreneur, was to never give away the product for free. Mm-hmm. And I really am appreciative of the fact that I got that advice, because I think that way from day one, I had real feedback from people. Like, even though we were friends, she wasn't going to keep paying me $150 until the end of time, right? Like, it's not a small amount of money. So I had to be proving value from the beginning. And so I think it put me on the right sort of hamster wheel, which was a good dose of fear that, I wouldn't show up for the next month, as well as like, driving force to kind of like keep the business going.
We need to let you go, Bika, but can you close us out by just dropping some wisdom on us?
Yes.
Or our listeners. You can you could talk about mom, businesswoman, boss lady life, or anything at all that comes to mind.
So right now I have a almost 2.5-year-old and a 5-month-old. So they are very small, and they need a lot of things.
They do.
So people, as you guys know well, people ask a lot like, oh, how are you doing this all? And, the fashion company through COVID, and I'm a really social person, and I enjoy like being in the community. My husband and I are the co-chairs for United Way this year for Seattle, and so there's a lot of balls in the air. And so like, how do you do it all? And 100%, I don't. And I think this is like it's a tough reality, because the thing that it means is that I do everything sort of badly, and badly kind of like in the objective sense, where like, if I was to do one of these things 100%, I would do a better job. So I don't, because like one of the things that is the great equalizer between all of us is we only have the same amount of hours in the day. That is something that money cannot buy you. Your brain can't invent more. It is the same for all of us. And so I do everything sort of badly. And what that means is that I have less time to dedicate to being a parent, to being a CEO, to being the United Way co-chair. And so I have to be comfortable with doing what I can in the hours allotted. And I really think that it's actually mostly about me. Because thankfully, if you take the parenting example, I am fortunate to be in a village with my kid. And so Valentine's Day was his first Valentine's Day at school yesterday. And I saw all the Instagram moms were like making the Valentine and writing the names out and all the stuff. And Dad of the Year did that for Kaysen. And so Dad and Kaysen did it in the morning. I could hear them. They were like laughing and having so much fun. And I was upstairs doing email, and it hurt. I was like, dang, I'm like missing this thing. But that's kind of how it goes. And, when I leave work early to go to something else, I always have that internal tussle of like, there's something exciting happening at work. I want to be here for it. I want to be here to like finish the conversation or whatever. But my kid needs to be picked up and he's waiting for me. And so that's what I mean about like it mostly being about me, because I think that I am my biggest demon in that sort of like time allocation situation, where I really want to be at all the things 100,000%. But this is the set of choices that I'm making. And I think the the sort of like self-talk, which is on a regular basis, is that I'm doing the best that I can. And if at any point this feels like the wrong kind of like set of priorities, it's not that I'm going to promise myself I'll do a better job in one of them without doing a worse job on the other. So it's just like sort of being comfortable and honest with yourself about the trade-offs and what they require. So cheers to not doing it all and doing everything kind of badly.
Yeah.
So much knowledge. That was a great one. Too real.
So good. I know, too real. If I think about it too hard, I'll cry.
You're like, I'm so bad at everything. And I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, so I want to be the best at everything. So I feel you though. You're like, I'm not a good CEO. I'm not a good husband. I'm not a good parent. I'm not a good thing. I'm doing too many things. I got to like cut it out.
And to have people, close people around you who will help you reevaluate how you're spending your time if you need it, right? If you really sense that something's out of whack or out of balance and it's persistent and it's not working, then, Shankar will be there to help you navigate that, and your C-suite too. So.
Yeah. And that's the gift, I think, for sure. And my sincere advice, especially to women, is that partner is everything. Because like, he was just a cute guy in a bar that I met, and like, you don't know that, like, fast forward a number of years and like the true trade-offs are about like helping each other live their dreams. And that again is like a necessary trade-off on time, where you help the other person live their dreams at the expense of your own dreams, because we all only have the same amount of time in the day. And so I'm super fortunate that the cute guy in the bar also wanted me to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. And stuck around for it.
So
good. Okay. Tell us Armoire's website.
Armoire is www.armoire.style. And we would love to deliver the dream closet to you. Come and check us out, save the earth while you're doing it, and have a bit of fun.
I can't wait for my next shipment.
You guys, this was the best. It was my week.
So fun.
We love you. We love
I know.
Story.
I'm kind of glad we saved it for a Friday. I'm glad that worked out the way it did. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Bika.
That's Ambika Singh, founder and chief boss lady of the renowned clothing rental company Armoire. Visit www.armoire.style to learn more about how Armoire can arm you with a new wardrobe that empowers you. And don't forget to follow them on social media at armoire.style. Thank you for tuning in to the MiiR X Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your support means the world to us. Stay tuned for our upcoming episodes where we'll continue to explore the stories and brilliance behind business leaders, creators, and changemakers that are shaping our world. Until next time.